Welcome to another quick drawing lesson. I thought today it'd be interesting to have a look at an illustration I did on the iPad last year. It's a Model A postal truck, and I did this in Procreate. So here's the process. The first thing I did was a very, very loose sketch of the vehicle itself. And notice how clearly I set up those guides for the perspective, because those are the most important part. If you want your truck to look three-dimensional, you need to sort your perspective out. So my vanishing points are off the page here, but those lines will help me align all the things like the panel work and the axles and things. So it's very loose and sketchy, very quickly done, because I'm really just trying to work out what's going to be in the picture at this point. So I experimented here with a truck in motion with the letters flying out the back. Then I tried a version with the truck parked at the side of the road with a post box and some buildings in the background. And the final version was a kind of combination of the two. So you had truck flying along and some street furniture and buildings and things as well. So then I moved on to the colour stage. In the past, I may have carefully outlined everything that I did before and cleaned all the drawing up first before going to the colour. But I realised that by the time you've done all the painting, you often lose all of that careful line work anyway, so there's no point doing it. And it's better usually to just go straight to the colour. That saves quite a bit of time. So here I am going to that colour, and you'll notice the first thing I did was a rough sort of value study, sort of darks and lights, just to work out where the light source was going to be. And I added this kind of peachy morning light because I thought it would be an early morning scene. After that, it gets rather random because I'm not an expert when it comes to colour. I tend to just put colours on layers above the drawing and then experiment with the overlay modes and opacity of those layers and smear them around and rub bits out, and just until I stumble across something that kind of looks like what I was going for, but it's not a very organised process. There's a lot of randomness and hit and miss about it. So here I am just putting some rough colours down, seeing which bits I like, picking those up, painting around some more with them, adding another layer and doing some more of that until I stumble across something that I think kind of works and is worth continuing with. Sometimes the colours get out of hand and there's too much going on, and I'll add something like one of these yellow layers and then apply it to the whole scene, and that will knock all the colours back, kind of homogenise them, give them all one sort of tone, just to get things under control again. And I do that quite often sometimes if it's just got away with me a bit. But finally I ended up at this point here where I quite liked the various colours that were there. It wasn't as simple as blue sky, green grass, orange buildings, green truck. There are more subtle things going on. There are kind of greys and pinks and blues going on in the sky, and there are browns and greens and oranges going on in the environment. So I felt at that point I'd sort of got a palette that I was happy with, and I could start to think about tidying up details in the truck and nailing things down a bit more. I realised that once I lost the tree, which I didn't fancy drawing, I still needed something in this corner of the picture to help the composition to stop the picture falling off the side of the page. So I added some very dark foreground shadows, which I'd later blur, and they would just do the job of sort of framing the picture, framing the truck a bit more. So a bit more playing around with the colours, and then working my way around the drawing, just tidying up things like all this panel work, signs and things on the side, tidying up the wheels. I added some foreground detail, some little flowers and leaves and grasses, but I decided later on to blur those slightly. And then I realised my background houses were a bit small, and that the background was just a bit too wishy-washy. It wasn't really standing out enough to tell the story of this truck delivering letters. So I redrew the background and added a kind of a mountain for interest, some trees, and that added a bit more colour. I looked at some reference photos online for American bungalows. And then carried on working my way around the drawing. The letters coming out the back, some foreground grasses, a spare wheel, and the little text and things on the side of the truck. Notice I also blurred those leaves and flowers I put in the foreground, and I used a directional blur, which blurs them in a direction, and that gave the impression of a sort of tracking camera. So now final details like little louvers, number plates, the driver, the postman sitting in the driver's seat. A few little highlights on the very bright hubcaps and any other shiny parts, just tidying up that shadow. And then I also added the motion blur to the background as well, and that really helped just make the truck the focal point of the picture. And then the final stage was to add just a bit of paper texture to the whole image. Digital pictures can often look a little bit too clean, even when you use this kind of painterly style. And just adding a bit of paper texture like that can just help just tie everything together. And it's also sort of a bit of a cheat. It makes it feel a bit more hand done rather than done on a computer. Notice there's also this pink layer here, which was an alternative lighting version that was just to boost those early morning pink colours a little bit. But I think I went with that version in the end rather than the pink one. Hope you found that interesting. If you did, let me know in the comments and subscribe and all that stuff. And I'll see you for another one soon.